You know what I notice? I notice that most people actually have dreams and wishes, that they have intentions and ideas that they want to manifest into reality. Whether it's writing a book, or it's starting your own business, or even go on holidays, everybody has ideas and dreams that they want to see come true. And what I notice is that in the corporate world, whenever there's an idea and it sets a vision, more often than not, it does seem to come true. And they do seem to somehow manifest this into reality. And for normal people, we can actually apply this corporate way of thinking and working and the frameworks that are used in corporate. We can apply them to our own personal dreams and wishes and goals and intentions, and thereby magically see it manifest into reality. And of course, the magic is in doing. But in corporate, there's systems and tools and ways of working that makes the doing so much easier. While in our private lives, we don't use frameworks. We just live. And that is actually really great and wonderful. But the problem is that when at the same time we have all these wonderful intentions and dreams and wishes, then we need to focus to see them through and get them manifested into reality, because otherwise we show ourselves that we have a lot of intentions and we never act on it, and we never actually end up manifesting anything, and we disappoint ourselves, and we become more and more discouraged and more deflated because we feel like everybody else is successful, or why can I never just do what I intend to do? But the reality is we're not set up for success because we don't have the structure and we don't have the mindset that the corporate world is applying with such great success. So today what we're going to do, I have made a video already on mindset. That's the beginning of it all. But once you have made that decision to actually, yes, I'm going to do this, then the next step is to get organized. And in corporate, there's tools and frameworks. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about timeline. But before we talk about the timeline, it's actually critical to understand that you don't just set you don't just set an arbitrary timeline. And it might feel like it's not arbitrary because you kind of know approximately how long something should take just from living and hearing. But there is such a thing as a dedicated specific timeline for your specific project. And so what we're going to talk about today is a little bit along the timeline idea, is that just to understand that there's actually an iron triangle, it's called, in the corporate world. And now I'm a project manager, so this is the kind of tool I apply when I get a project in its infancy, in the beginning stages. When I first get given, this is the task you're now gonna work on, this is the project we need you to implement. The first thing I do is look at this iron triangle, because it's incredibly important. We have time, scope, and budget, and they are totally interconnected. Your time depends on how big your scope is. So let's say you want to write a book. It matters if it's a 30,000 word book and it's like, let's say it's a manual for a very specific task, 30,000 words, or if it's a normal novel size is maybe 90,000 words, or if it's like a big novel of maybe 150,000 words or 200,000 words. So the scope matters in relation to time, like how big is your specific task? Because writing a book can be many different things depending on what type of book you're writing. Is it a fiction book, or is it a work instruction, or a way of thinking, or is it a psychology book, or something that you're educated within, where you have something that you want to share with the world, a new way of seeing things. And these are very different type. These two examples are very different in relation to how long it's going to take, because the scope is different. And then the third thing that influences this is budget. And it's kind of, we look at budget and people here together, because you can in principle buy people. So people belongs under budget. But you know, is it just you writing your book? Is it if it's a novel, are you writing your novel with somebody else? Then you're dependent on that person, but that person may also deliver something. If you're writing a non-fiction book, and let's say a psychology book, are you working with other people? Can you outsource some of it? Are you writing a chapter and your colleague is writing a chapter? Those are the kind of things that matters, because again, how do you break down the work, the scope? How do you distribute that between you and somebody else, for instance? Or budget-wise, you can also say, do you have everything you need in order to initiate your book writing? Do you have a computer? Do you have a screen? Do you have a keyboard? Do you have things that is usually very handy in relation to writing? If not, you need to consider, when will I have the budget? Because if you have enough budget to buy, let's say, a laptop, but actually it's not the most efficient way for you to work because you're used to working on a keyboard, then maybe you have to consider that your normal way of working isn't actually possible right now, because you have to work on a laptop. So you have to maybe consider, I can't sit as many hours in a day working on a laptop because I'll get a sore neck or it'll be bad for my posture. So maybe that limits the amount of time you can use on it. And that's why it's incredibly important, before we even get to estimating time, that we have an idea about the scope, and we have an idea about how many resources we can add to this project, be it money-wise or people-wise. So let's talk about the book. Let's say you want to write a book. Things that go into estimating a timeline to write a book would be, for instance, the computer. What are you able to do? But it's also other considerations. It's like, do you have a 9-to-5 job? Are you writing in your spare time? How well do you know the material that you want to put down on the page? Is it a fiction book and you're coming up with it as you go along, or do you have already basically outlined the chapters and you know kind of the storyline of the book, or are you gonna invent it as you go? Also, if you have a 9-to-5 job, then do you have a family that you also need to see to? Do you have school meetings, or picking up children from the nursery or bringing them to nursery? Or do you have do the kids need to be taken to football or other sports that where you're needed in a different way, where you don't just have your dedicated time? This is also important, because often what happens is we end up making so many unrealistic timelines for ourselves when we have an idea and we are super passionate about it. We end up thinking, oh, okay, I really want to write this book, and you sit down and you start writing and you're so passionate, and then because life happens around you, it just doesn't continue. There is a certain level of consistency. that the corporate world applies, where every day people show up to work, every day they do tasks. They hire people like me, project managers, to follow up and to see that there's progress, to kind of check in. And as an individual succeeding, you need to apply all these things. And I'll get much more into all these kind of other things that we can do as individuals, that we can benefit from knowing what the corporate world does in other videos. But right now, focusing on the timeline, you still need to consider your setup. So assuming you have scoped somewhat, know what you're writing about, you know approximately what kind of investments you have to make in order to initiate or in order to keep going, then you can start estimating your timeline. But you do need to know your setup at home. You need to understand, when will I do it? Let's say you're a solopreneur and you in principle have all day, every day. But there's still other things you need to do. Maybe you have a commitment where you post on social media every day or every 2 days or every week, but it's still a commitment that you have to do in connection with your company. So maybe you have client sessions where you have to set aside those hours now and again to meet with your client, and that's not writing time. Okay, but let's assume that you are writing a fiction novel. Standard word count is around 90,000 words. A professional author like Stephen King, he writes about 2,000 words a day. That is his goal. Now, he's a professional author. He does this for a living. It's his job. It's his passion. It's what he's good at. And having a goal of 2,000 words a day, would that be realistic for you? Maybe it is. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying, please reflect on it. Please reflect on, are you able to commit to the same word count daily as a professional author and somebody who's been writing for so many years like Stephen King? So let's say you do write 2,000 words a day. That would be 45 days to write the book. Okay, now I'm going to write something down here. Because let's say now is time to make a plan, right? With a timeline. And this is how you do it. So first you write the book. So that's 45 days. And we say, right, okay, this is start. Today. This is intense writing. It's 45 days. You need to consider already at this point in time, do you need buffer days? Like, are you gonna include the weekend? Are you gonna write 7 days a week? Or are you gonna write also Saturday, so 6 days a week? Or are you only gonna do it Monday to Friday? What works for you? I recommend 5 days a week, and I have another talk that I'll do about that with the 5 days on and 2 days off, because that's also the corporate way, and we should learn from corporate now. That's what I'm here to let you know. But let's say you work intensely 45 days. You need to consider, what happens if you're ill? What happens if one day you can't write? Because carrying over the 2,000 words to the next day and say, then I'll just catch up the next day. Then I'll write 4,000 words on the following day when I'm back from my 1 day of illness. That's very unrealistic. Again, the whole point in setting a realistic timeline is to avoid getting frustrated, avoid doing something that sets you up for failure. Because what happens is that if you end up being frustrated, then you will not carry on. You will not continue your project. You'll give up, and your amazing book that we all want to read and that needs to see the world, or the world needs to see the words, or whatever. We need you to write that book so that we can read it. But it's not going to be written unless you have a really solid timeline where you feel like, yes, this is realistic. I really, truly believe in it. So you need to go through these considerations. Let me take a drink. Okay. So let's say you do write it in 45 days. You did decide not to have any buffer. Right? No. You know what? I'm going to give you a buffer of 5 days. A 5 days here buffer. It's a book, 90,000 words. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now we're at 50 days. Now what happens is Stephen King, professional author again, he actually leaves the book for 6 weeks. I believe this is how much he leaves it. This is just based on my memory. No need to tell me off if I'm wrong. Let's say he leaves it for 6 weeks. I believe this is true. Check up on it yourself. 6 weeks of leaving it. You're not, like, according to the pros, you're not able to revise your book the instant you're done. You're too close to it. You're too much in the mud of it. So you need to leave it to do something else, and then you come back. Now we have 45 days plus 5 days of buffer plus 6 weeks. And now we continue. Then after the 6 weeks, you want to set aside some time to read and revise. Right? So let's say you can read the book in a week, and then you want to sit and revise it. That can take some time. So let's give you, what do you think? 3 weeks. Okay? Then you leave it again. Do you want to leave it 6 weeks again? And you know, in the meantime, you can write another book, right? If you're really efficient, if you have a hard time leaving things, then maybe it's a good idea to actually do something else to keep yourself busy. Post more on social media in this time. Tell all about your journey as an author, maybe. But now you read and revise again. And maybe you think, okay, this is getting too much, right? But the thing is, when you put something out there, when you put yourself out there, you want to put your best version of yourself out there. So let's say you go for a job interview. You don't show up smelling of alcohol in some old clothes that are totally dirty and scruffy. You put on your suit or you put on your nice dress, and you make yourself look nice, so that you're presentable, so people want to buy into you, so they want to invest in you. And the same way with your book. If you're going to be putting out books, you want to put your best version forward. You want to read it and revise it and read it and revise it. And now this is an example with a book, right? But it might as well be an online course. It could be anything that you want to create in this world. It can be a painting. I don't know. You come up with it. Maybe you want to set up a tea shop. I don't know. But you want to make it presentable. You want to make it a nice thing, a nice place to come if it's a tea shop. And you want to make it a really nicely written book that is very appealing and that makes agents and publishers and readers want to have more, right? Okay, so you're reading and revising, you're leaving it, you're reading and revising, and then maybe at this point in time, now the book is completed. Does that mean you have launched it? Then there's other things to consider, right? You maybe want to send it out to agents. Send it to agents. Right? So looking into how long time does it take? You press the button, you submit it to the agent. How long before you get the feedback? That's not enough. You actually need to make a summary of the book. You need to go in, find all the agents, and then you need to decide who do I believe in? Maybe you believe in certain agents, but not others. So it's all going to take time. And suddenly you send it out to agents here, and then agents also take a while to even get back to you. Maybe they take 6 weeks also. Let's say that, 6 weeks. So all the time we can see that there's things to do before the activity. There's things that has to happen in between. Good. So after that, maybe there's a publisher coming into the works and all these other things. You can see it keeps going on. Or maybe you just self-published on this day, right? Maybe that was how you went with it. But even before that happened, on that day, you need to make a cover, you needed to set it up nicely, you need to decide if you're gonna launch it on Amazon, or if you're gonna put it on a website where people can buy and download the ebook. You need to have an ISBN number. There's so many things to do, but then you have marketing after that. The point is, let's keep it to the book, but there are many steps in it. And you need to not go into this feeling daunted. It's so good to have eyes wide open. And that is, again, I refer back to the corporate setting. That's what they know. That's what project management is all about. That's why they hire project managers, because we go through all the steps and check that we remember everything. And then we feed back to the management and say, this is how long it's going to take. This is when we realistically can go live. And this is what needs to happen next. And you also need to prepare, if you're self-publishing, for instance, you need to prepare some kind of marketing. How are you going to get it out there? That's a different thing. We can talk about that a different day. But the point actually is that when you, in the beginning of a project, if you have a timeline, like write a book and it's a fiction book, it's 90,000 words, I'm going to write 2,000 words a day, I'm going to be done in 45 days. If that was your initial idea of writing a book, I'll be done in a month and a half, right? You see how this added up, and now it's 12 months later, right? And that's the difference. That's where the frustration comes in. That's why we end up failing with our individual goals, because we're unrealistic with our timelines. So today we talked only about the timeline, but still touched on the fact that there's a scope and a budget, and I think you understand why. But we'll go more into how to scope, how to actually define what it is you want to do, because just like with the timeline, there's some steps where you have to think around your project. We'll get into that in another video. I hope to see you there. Have a great day. Go get your goals done. Bye.